And so I asked him, I said, can you take me to this altar? He said, I can take you to the altar, but you can't see it. And I said, why can't I see it? Is it buried? He said, no, it's not buried, but it has a house built on top of it. I said, who would be crazy enough to build their house on top of a blood sacrifice altar? And he said, well, Rockefeller was. We go over there, and he's got the key. So we go into the house, and he takes me into the parlor. He said, you're standing right on top of the altar right now. This is the room that is built on top of it. It's the room that they were sitting in when they drew up the entire legislation and plan to pass it that became the Federal Reserve Act. So this was the conception of the Federal Reserve banking system, on the parlor sitting on top of a blood sacrifice altar.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
The other bombings were not printed on other bills. The reason it is significant is because it fits into a hypothesis that is completely and utterly supported by the data, and the conclusion is solid.
They think that when the financial collapse hits the shores of the United States, they have 72 hours. But a scenario like this, and it would give you something to look for, a little red flag to look for. Let's say that the banks all say that there's a virus in all the banking systems, all of the banks, and they have to shut down, like on a Friday. We know that the Obama administration loves to do things on a Friday afternoon, or when we're celebrating New Year's Eve. Over the weekend, you wouldn't be able to use your ATM or pay any bills online, but everything will be fine on Monday morning. That is your red flag. You have 72 hours from that moment, because they're going to unroll martial law in 72 hours from that moment. Whatever scenario they intend to unroll.
Remember, this is the number of reported attacks against companies that control things like the power grid, the water filtration plants, even nuclear facilities. The Department of Homeland Security Cyber Division reports that reported attacks against all of them up significantly since 2009. And some of the most common ones are something called a spear phishing attack. And that's where some sort of malware can be loaded up onto the computers, and then it can actually report back information about what you're doing. In one of these cases, and we just saw the target list there a second ago, in one of these cases against a nuclear facility, it was really interesting because an employee had actually taken a presentation and put it on a USB drive, a jump drive like you and I have. And that was what happened in terms of exposing the network at a nuclear plant. That kind of thing makes me a little nervous. I don't know about you.
A stunning chain of events. Today, Michael Carey, the two-star general responsible for the nation's 3 intercontinental ballistic missile wings, fired from his command. The reason? Personal misbehavior on a military business trip. This comes just 48 hours after President Obama himself relieved the number 2 in command over the nation's nuclear arsenal over his suspected use of counterfeit poker chips.
My thing is, as we're talking off air, it looks as if they were asking these 2 individuals that were fired, the number 1 nuke commander and the number 2 nuke commander, to ship the nuke, unsigned transfer, which already did happen, but then potentially authorize a false flag event in South Carolina as a pretext to go to Syria. And that would have ultimately maybe worked, but we blew the lid on it. And the second thing is, this looks like the second guy might have been a whistleblower as well against this. And these guys go in and say, okay, you're not going to play ball, we'll get rid of you, and put this guy in who's from the Pentagon. And the other ones might be as well, I don't know, but this guy's been with the Pentagon since 2009, and he might play ball. He might do whatever they want. He might be the kind of guy that's, you know, just a fill in there. They build him up and throw him.
Oh, look at Weinstein. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
So that's the guy with all the nukes.
Yes. This is now the controller of all the nuclear weapons in the United States, Air Force-wise, that can be attached to a bomber.
These follow an alarming string of general officers losing their jobs this year for inappropriate behavior, misconduct, or lack of leadership. 2 Marine Corps generals fired less than 2 weeks ago for not providing proper force protection in Afghanistan. An Army Brigadier General relieved of duty for adultery. An Army 2-star general fired for groping a civilian. And in March, a Navy 1-star removed for racially insensitive comments and abusive leadership. Last spring, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was so concerned about all the high-profile cases, he sent a letter to Pentagon brass urging a recommitment to ethical leadership.
So what was that temporary duty assignment the guy failed to do that would fire him over? I mean, this guy was in charge of fleets. He was in charge of nuclear.
When you fire generals, it's usually congressional hearings.
I mean, it's you hardly ever fire them. You give them, you know, honorary service and everything like that. This guy's, damn, you're done. You're fired. You are fired.